I am delighted with what I saw last night, but we're just not allowed nice things, are we? This is the Arsenal reaction show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal News. Well, it's not the Arsenal News Show, it's the Arsenal reaction show because we are, of course, recording this, or rather broadcasting this, the day after the evening before. Arsenal 2, Fulham 1, bringing to an end a rather disgusting run of disappointing results against Fulham, who have really taken so many points off Arsenal in recent years. Unbeaten, I think, in their last 3, 1 win and 2 draws against the Gunners. And Arsenal managed to finally get things back on track with that 2-1 victory. Probably should have been 2-0. Arsenal a little bit lax late on to allow a late equaliser. Could have been more than that in the end. Muniz missing a massive headed opportunity, of course. Arsenal missed their own chances as well throughout the game. But overall, just get the job done. Just get the 3 points and move on. But it's not as simple as that. Yes, there's some brilliant stories, some magical moments, and we can talk all about Bukayo Saka as much as we want and how much we've missed him and how much we could have done with him. But we could be saying very much the same thing about another player in the coming weeks because we experienced arguably the worst, after Saka, the worst injury that we could suffer has now come. Just days before the most important match of our entire season. We're going to talk about all that and more in today's show. Good morning to you all joining us live in the chat box today. Tom, Blackshine, Matt G, Brian, James. We've got Martin and Glenn and David and Andy and Shari. We've got Carlton. We've got Maximius and Chad. We've got Gary and John and Stephen and Stevie and Steve. Stephen, Stevie and Steve all next to each other. Brilliant. Amazing. That'd be a nightmare for a teacher reading out the register, wouldn't it? We've got Steve, Stevie and Steve. It's like Ed and Eddie. In one room. Eshy, Paul, Carl, Grantley Poos, Paul James, and James, Josiah. Good morning to you all. Thank you so much to you all for tuning in. Those that are listening, of course, on Catch Up, you are very much appreciated too. Thank you so much for doing so. And if you could drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show, that would be very much appreciated as well. Of course, yes, there last night. Very glad to be back at the Emirates. Nice feeling being there. I'm out with a good friend, of course, Mike from the Goodness Pod, for lunch. So I didn't really indulge too much in the Emirates offering yesterday. Me and Mike had a lovely paella for lunch, which we enjoyed greatly. Reminded me of my trip to Girona in some ways. Actually, genuinely, it was absolutely brilliant. But there was this weird feeling ahead of the game. I went into the game with this really odd sense of, I don't really know what this is. I don't really know how to feel about these games anymore in the Premier League. And that's considering Arsenal currently sits second in the table and there's still, I think, 8 games left to play in the campaign. You can finish on 85 points, which is far less than we wanted at the start of the campaign. We wanted to get into the 90s, of course, and can't do that now. We'll have to be perfect if we want to have any hope of doing anything. Liverpool play against Everton tonight, 8 o'clock kickoff at Anfield. Of course, Arsenal then play Everton on Saturday, only a few days after. I think there was a real feeling of tiredness from the Fulham team, especially in the first half from their game against Crystal Palace. They made a number of changes to their team, but I think it still took its toll on the side, particularly in the first half. I don't, even if Everton were to get a result against Liverpool, it's still incredibly unlikely that Arsenal can turn around such a big gap in such a small space of time. But yeah, this game was an odd one. I saw Elliot's tweet from the Vision saying this feels like the start of a new season almost, this game. And I don't know if I'd go that far. And certainly after 20 minutes, that feeling disappeared entirely, if anything did exist. But it was an odd sense. The atmosphere was, as has been in these Premier League games, quite flat. The loudest noise came for, of course, the return of Bukayo. But outside of that, it really was. The stadium wasn't full. There was thousands of empty seats, especially in the top tier in particular. Of course, on the ticket exchange, there was loads and loads and loads and loads of seats, which is obviously a frustration. We talked a lot about tickets and demand and people desperate for games and not being able to get a ticket, so on and so forth. And it's, I think we need to change that conversation a little bit, because, of course, I don't think it's the frustration about not getting tickets for any game. It's particularly about not getting tickets when demand is really high. That the ballot is not the problem, is it? Like, let's be 100% honest about this now, because if the ballot was the problem, then people that apply through the ballot and aren't successful ever would never get tickets. But the reality is that the ballot is a problem when everyone wants tickets. That's when the ballot becomes the issue. So I think that changes the concept of the conversation around that. But that's perhaps a conversation for a different time. So yeah, let's move into today's game and talk about the ins and outs of what happened. Arsenal 2, Fulham 1. What turned out in the end to be a very, 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 very important goal in the context of just the match in itself from our returning hero. It is such a joy to have seen him back in the squad. I've never seen quite a applause for a player warming up on the touchline. I've seen players come back from injury and they've got a rapturous kind of reception. When Saka went to warm up down the touchline, the entire bottom tier, or at least certainly from what I could see, the entire bottom tier, like from the other side of the pitch to where the players warm up, were on their feet applauding the return of Bukayo Saka. And quite right too. And we showed exactly why later in the game, and why indeed we think about him in such terms. It's such a horrific shame what has happened to Arsenal this season. It's not an excuse to turn around and talk about the injuries that Arsenal have faced this campaign and what it has done to their season. It's not an excuse in any way, shape, or form, because when you look at any of the other teams in the league that have dealt with injuries, even close, sometimes not even close, in the case of Manchester City, to what Arsenal's injury situation has been this season, they've fallen away. They have crumbled. Some, like United and Tottenham, sit firmly in the bottom half of the table, only saved from a relegation battle by the inadequacies of the three teams that were promoted last season. Arsenal somehow still sit second in the Premier League, 4 points from third, 12 points from fourth currently. Chelsea play tonight against Spurs, and currently above a Manchester City side by 13 points, having played a game less than them. That's what this Arsenal team have done with, and Arteta spoke after the game in quite considerable detail about the context of the season. He said, and was asked kind of about the scenario that he's facing. He said, the good thing is that it's been like this the whole season. He kind of joked. You see Martinelli today, you say we missed him 3 months. You see Bukayo 4 months, Kai 4 months, Gabby Jesus almost the whole season. How we have managed to be where we are with all those injuries. Ben White hasn't participated at all this season. It's what it is. We want it so much that we're going to give it a real go. But we are very excited for next week. He was asked about as well by James Ollie, have you ever dealt with this before, kind of a season like this? And he says, no, unfortunately. No, especially because as well, there have been some big players in very critical positions and affecting the whole line. We have a lot of good news as well. Look at Miles and Ethan. Look at the players doing all this stuff. So that's it. And he was asked about how do you plan a week ahead when you've got all of these issues? And he says, yeah, you're scratching your head. I know in the next few games, the same. But at the same time, it's been a great learning experience, for us and all the coaches and the staff to manage that situation. At the end, the players are going to react, and how we react to it, you start to feel sorry for yourself and say, it's impossible how we're going to do this. It will be impossible. But these boys, they don't give you the reason to act like that. And look where we are. We are in April. and we're currently second, and we're 13 points above Manchester City and 12 points above Chelsea. And no, we're not going to fall out. You know, fans were concerned when Havertz and Jesus went, in terms of their injury, and Saka, that we might fall out the top four. We've not even flirted with the idea. You know, we were having a lot of conversations, weren't we, about fears of falling out the top four. We've not even flirted with that, really, have we? We've not. We had a little blip where we couldn't win in a few games against Forest, and who was the other one? Who did we draw against? Man United, and there was somebody before that. Was at West Ham. I think it was West Ham, wasn't it? Lost to West Ham, drew with Forest, drew with United, and we had a little bit of a wobble there, and thought, well, maybe that's obviously what killed the title race for us. But there was a real feeling that maybe we would fall out the top four. We've not come close to doing that. And that is, again, it stuns me that we are second, really. And I know that there's going to be people that are lapping up this, even with our own, sadly, I say, even with our own fan base, that are like, yeah, we're finishing way behind Liverpool, get rid of him. Like, what on earth can Arteta do this season? Even when the period of January came around when we absolutely had to sign somebody and we didn't, he stood there on a precipice asking to get reinforcements and wasn't delivered them. So this season for me is a joke what we've dealt with, but the fact that we are where we are despite what we've had is mad to me. So the lineup on the day, a couple of differences to what maybe we expected. We didn't see Saka start the game. Waneri started on the right-hand side. I thought there maybe could have been an idea where Martinelli and Trossard would start. I'm kind of glad that Waneri did start the game. That was good to see, especially with kind of the games that we got coming up and how we're going to rotate, how we're going to change, what we're going to do differently. So that's going to be very interesting indeed. Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Lewis, Skelly was the expected defense. Partey, Rice, Odegaard. The only worrying issue was that Ben White is nowhere to be seen. Ben White gone. He didn't address it in the press conference, but John Cross from the Mirror went up to Arteta after the presser had finished and said, "What is the issue with Ben?" And Arteta did say it was like it's his knee. It's obviously that's the procedure he's had. The procedure was designed to fix his knee. Obviously, it's concerning that since coming back from that surgery, he's not really been able to do anything. Ben White, I mean, what did he play? I think he played against PSV in that game, but so far has sadly not. I'm not a surgeon. I'm not a doctor. I don't know what the right steps are. I don't know how long it's going to take. It's not like a hamstring situation, I guess, when the muscle's healed. This is a joint. It's different. He did play 79 minutes at right back against PSV on the 12th of March. But since the 12th of March, hasn't played any football at all. Was on the bench the whole game against United, the bench the whole game against Chelsea, not in the squad against Fulham. So hopefully he's back for next week because, of course, the context that we're going to talk about in a second, we really need Ben White to be back. We really, really, really need Ben White to be back. And the whole game, was really all the build up, all of the noise, all of the discussion, all the stories we're talking about before the game. I wonder what we're going to be writing about afterwards, even before I'm writing about Bukayo Saka and him being picked for the squad again. And yet, somehow, despite the greatest news that we could get in Bukayo Saka not only coming back and scoring, which we'll talk about, somehow a bigger story emerges from this game. And that's an absolute nightmare. If you could rank every single player in the Arsenal squad who is currently available to be selected, take away Saka for a second, because obviously, he wasn't able to start. Take away and rank them in terms of importance. Rank them with number one being the one player really who you would least like to have an injury. Some might say Saliba. Some might say Rice. I think the majority are saying Gabriel. The majority are saying Gabriel has been our best player this season. He's arguably our player of the season. Him and David Raya, I think, are up there as the two players that you're looking at right now and saying they are the two Arsenal could not afford to lose, particularly in the context with White out, with Calafiori currently injured. Of course, Ben White now, where he is, Jurriën Timber also suffering a bit of an option. It was a toss-up between Gabriel and Raya. Outfield players, it's no debate at all. It's definitely Gabriel. Because his presence, his consistency, his reliability, and it's another hamstring injury. That's Gabriel, that's Waneri, that's Saka, that's Havertz, that's Martinelli. Hamstring injury after hamstring injury after hamstring injury. This is a centre half, Yes, it was in the moment where he was kind of sprinting back, trying to defend. It cost us. We can go into greater depths. You can start speculating or conspiracying, why this is happening. I know some people want to point the finger at our rotation of players, but let's be honest. In which game is Gabriel not starting? In which game is Gabriel not playing? Really, you could argue maybe the PSV game. You could start Saliba instead, potentially. But Gabriel's never even been a risk when it comes to his fitness, really. We've had one scare in the season, but that was more of an impact situation. Gabriel, just no. And there's just too many games. There's too many games. And this is about the authorities. This is about the expansion of the World Cup, the expansion of the Club World Cup, the expansion of the Champions League. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke what these players are being expected to do. And as a result, this is what we're saying. This is what we are seeing. And it's utterly gutting. It's utterly soul-destroying whenever we see another player go down with another injury. Timber, of course. The Timber one, I'm hoping that one's going to be all right. It seemed he just kind of had a bit of a kick on his knee from Jimenez and he carried on, but couldn't carry on, obviously in too much pain by the end of the game. I'm hoping that the Jurriën Timber one is going to be okay. I'm hoping that's going to be all right. So we'll wait and see, but it wasn't great to see him come off in the second half, but I'm hoping that was just kind of an impact thing and it was just pain that brought him off after, of course, we'd got the second goal. But yeah, it was 0-0 by this point, obviously, in the game, but we took the lead thanks to who else but Mikel Merino, who's now scored 5 in 8 games. And I can just, someone in my ear, I can hear him. It's it's definitely Clive. I can hear him. I reckon he was kind of, his thumbs were twitching as he held back the restraint to send me a message again last night after Mikel Merino scored. And I put the question to Arteta. I said to Arteta, it's a night that obviously is going to get swallowed up in Bukayo Saka and the Gabriel injury. And so I asked him specifically about the Mikel Merino scoring, what is his 5th goal in 8 games at centre forward for Arsenal. And it must really please him, knowing that he's playing out of position. And he said he does, yeah. But he's got that capacity to score goals, to send the danger, to move in the right moments, into the right spaces. Today was a different goal, but then you ask him to play as an 8, and he does it perfectly and understands the timing, the position, the run, so good. It's a joy to have players like this. I thought Ethan as well, he had some really good moments. Martinelli, I think, was superb, my man of the match. You see how much we missed him, that threat, the attacking purpose that he has every time he's on the ball. So some good performances. It's interesting he talks there about Merino. I think the Merino will probably fall into the category of player that us humbled fans won't really understand how impressive he is. We've had a few of those players in kind of our time, and I get the sense that from Arteta's perspective, he utterly loves Mikel Merino and what he does, his movement, his role. And I think that it's not necessarily so obvious to us what that role is and what all of the things he does in a game. I think he does a lot off the ball, clearly, that we're not obviously all seeing all the time. He's doing a job, he's doing a good job. It's becoming a great job. It hadn't been a great job up until the point where we were talking about it previously, but it really is becoming a great job, and he's on the way to doing a great job in that position now. And 5 goals in 8 games for a player who is not a centre forward. That's better than Gabriel Jesus playing that position. How many goals was Gabriel Jesus scoring starting at centre forward, who is a centre forward? No, he's not a natural centre forward, but he's far more. If you were to say on a scale of 1 to 10, where's Gabriel Jesus on the line from 0 to 10 of a centre forward? I'd say Gabriel Jesus is on like the 7, 8 kind of bracket. What are you describing on a scale of 1 to 10, the level of centre forwardry Mikel Merino is? It's probably a 2, a 3, an absolute push, just because of his height and target man ability. I'm sorry, but what more can you ask really of Merino but doing what he's doing? Yes, the goal is fortunate. Yes, it takes a deflection, but he's in there. He's in the right place at the right time. He gets the great work from Waneri, by the way, in the build up. Really good work from him. Good work from Timber to find Waneri with the pass. And he's in the right place. Takes a couple of touches, but I thought maybe too many at the time. But he gets the ball out of his feet, strikes, and gets a bit fortunate. And sometimes you need a little bit of luck. And then, of course, he's involved in the second goal in the second half. Brilliant run initially from Martinelli. Ball to Merino on the left-hand side, sliding cross. Martinelli flicks the ball with elegance and grace. And who's there? He's there. Bukayo Saka's there to head the ball into the back of the net and generate a noise in the Emirates Stadium that, yes, you hear a roar when we score. Yes, you hear shouts and screams and delight when we score goals. But that noise I heard when Saka scored was a noise I've not heard in the Emirates Stadium for quite a while. That excitement, that hope, that electricity that has been missing. I think the word is joy. Arsenal's season has lacked joy. We have been hammered and battered and beaten and let down and disappointed and frustrated this season. Arsenal fans really have been pummeled by the things that have been entirely out of our control, by the absolute atrocious refereeing monstrosities that we have to deal with week in, week out. And we've been let down, sadly, by some people within our own midst in the January transfer window and to a degree the summer transfer window. And unfortunately, we've also been let down by some of the individuals in our own fan base that have used a lot of this misery for their own gain. But what we have missed most, what we have dealt with most, is a lack of joy, a lack of excitement, a lack of glee, a lack of attachment and desire to want to come back every week. The amount of times I've heard fans say, I'm done. I'm done with this season. I'm done. I've had moments where I'm like, if this weren't my job, it would be very hard to just keep plugging away every week and talking about things every single day about this, because it has been a marathon of a campaign. And I feel like the marathon that we have run, as we continue to look ahead to the person who's running ahead of us, as we have broken ankles and broken knees and hamstrings that are hanging on by a thread, the other one's completely been destroyed, all these scenarios. It's hard to do that. But like seeing your other half or a family member on the sidelines cheering you on, that was like the feeling of seeing Bukayo Saka back, in the squad again and scoring. It was a glorious moment, and one that he enjoyed a lot. And you could see that on his face, and you could see that on the fans. I let out kind of I don't know what noise it would have been. I think it would have been, oh, it's Saka. It would have been something like that when he scored, because it was just great. It was utterly great. And I think I saw a stat yesterday, actually. Let me see if I can find it specifically, because it was quite a good one. And it's one of those stats you read and you're like, oh, that makes me feel really good. Saka has more goals than Foden and Cole Palmer in 2025, despite being out for 4 months. That that made me laugh an incredible amount. I don't know if that's accurate. I'm going to do a quick check on that now. Foden in 20, no goals in the Champions League. No goals in the Premier. Oh no, he has scored one in 2025. In fact, he did score a few in January. To be fair to him, it looks like it. But I think maybe that was designed for one. But certainly in the last 3 months was the tweet. No, it says in 2025. That's not true. But in the last 2+ months, Saka's got more goals than Foden. And he's only been back for a game. So yeah, it's it's great. It was great. It was such a gorgeous moment. But I do want to give a specific, before we go to part 2 and your questions, I want to give a specific shout out to this guy, because he has been this man that I'm going to mention in a second. Those that are watching on screen will know who this is already, but those that are listening on audio platforms won't. This guy deserves all of the praise in the world for having, I think, genuinely one of his best games in an Arsenal shirt. One, especially recently, in recent memory, this was one of his best performances I have witnessed. Gabriel Martinelli was brilliant, absolutely superb. He beat his man time after time after time in this game, and that has not been an easy feat for him of late. Him beating his man has been something that has frustrated us, and he was going up against both Castagna and Issa Diop as well. They went with a back five, of course they did, on that right-hand side. The flicks, the runs, the power, the speed, the timing, and he was making good decisions. He was making decisions that I wanted him to make in previous games and wasn't. He wasn't getting frustrated with himself when it didn't necessarily work out. He was cutting the ball back well. He was crossing well. And ultimately his involvement in Saka's goal, which I had to include. This picture only kind of goes 1 second on from the last picture we've had on the previous slide. And it's just his reaction to the little flick to Saka. And he just roars at the celebrating crowd. And there's some wonderful photos of him and Saka celebrating together. I've included them in my morning line that's gone out. I encourage you to give that a read after you've watched this show. I'll leave a link to it in the description today. But just if you would, I know some of you complain about the adverts on the website. I can't control that, I'm afraid. If you use the app, it sometimes helps. But I really hope. And yeah, Gaza says, yeah, he was offside. He was offside. He ran too early. He could have scored. Could have scored a goal, but he timed his run a little bit too early, which is a shame. And he would have absolutely been worthy of a goal. Stephen says the flick was worthy of Bergkamp. It certainly was Bergkamp-esque in the way that he kind of did it. I think that'll be on one of his highlight reels of his career for sure. Shout out again to Merino for his desire in those moments to get the ball across. But yeah, I had to single out Gabriel Martinelli, who was great. So yeah, I hope that's the Martinelli that we see ripping apart. Well, I guess it'll be Lucas Vazquez or Valverde at right back when they come to town next week. Let's wait and see if it is indeed Gabriel Martinelli doing exactly that. Right, let's go to part 2 and your questions and more right after this. Now, I should apologise, of course, for those that maybe have not been tuning in for a little while and you're back. If you've not been listening to the last few days, you can probably hear in the background there's a little bit of noise and stuff and background noise. We've got work going on in the house, so apologies if that is indeed being picked up by the microphones and coming through. I can only apologise. I can't do anything about it. I know for some people, me even just mentioning it is apparently a problem. But I'd much rather apologise for it existing, and you that are wondering, what is that noise? Is that me? No, it is noise in the background, I'm afraid. I can only say sorry. So yes. Right. Derek says Valverde went off injured last. I don't think he did. I'm pretty sure Valverde played the entirety of their match against Real Sociedad, or at least the majority of it. Yeah, he did. He did not go off injured last night. He went down injured for a second, but completed the entire game. So, yeah. Last night, Real Madrid played out a 4-4 draw, a 5-4 aggregate win over Real Sociedad. It seemed for a moment that they might get eliminated from the Copa del Rey, but they conceded 4 in the Bernabeu against La Real. Of course, Mikel Oyarzabal with 2 of those goals, and Baranejad. I'm sorry, my Basque is horrendous. The pronunciation of this word, Barenetxea. Baranejad. Baranejad. I'm going to go with that. And I hope that's right. Baranejad. Or Baranejad. Maybe it's Che. Maybe TX is a ch. Maybe that's a ch sound. So Baranejad. Or Chia. Baranejad. Someone tell me. Put some phonics in the chat box if you speak Basque. And only if you speak Basque. Don't educate me if you haven't got a clue. You're just guessing. Baranejad, maybe it's that. Mikel Oyarzabal getting 2. David Alaba scoring an own goal. Martin Zubimendi, of course, played the entire game, as would be expected. But 2 late goals in the last 10 minutes from Jude Bellingham and Aurelien Tchouameni, and then a 115th minute goal from Antonio Rudiger. Would obviously certainly be the winner in this case. So, yeah. Gutting. Absolutely gutting that happened. But it is, I think, encouraging that Real Madrid can concede 4 at home. And that should give Arsenal some encouragement going to the Bernabeu in a couple of weeks' time, hoping to get a result. So hopefully that can be some inspiration. Right. Michael says, I see what you did there. What did I do? I'm doing things without even knowing. Ashley says, factually, Miles Lewis-Skelly is at fault, but he came from 2 emotional England games. He was gassing from the 75th minute. Sessegnon was bringing energy. Arteta, Tierney, and Zinchenko could have come on. I do want to look at this Muniz goal again, because I was having a couple of people say to me that they felt that it was Kivior more at fault. But let me see if I can find the replay just so I can watch it back again, because certainly I know there's quite a few discrepancies, that's the word, between what some people are claiming and whose fault it was for the Fulham goal. So we're just waiting for this advert to play in the background, and then I'll be able to watch and make my mind up. I've not really been able to watch the highlights so far. There's the goal. Okay, so Pereira down. Obviously, Lewis-Skelly is kind of caught a little bit high up the field here. Sessegnon into the box. Deflection. Kivior is where? What's Kivior doing? Okay, so Kivior's not really. Yeah, I mean, Kivior is at fault, unfortunately. He's in no man's land there. He's not closing down. He's not stopping the cross. He just kind of lets. I think because he sees Lewis-Skelly kind of chasing back, he thinks he's going to get there. But I think Kivior's got to be alive to the danger that Lewis-Skelly isn't going to get back in time and has to get tighter to Sessegnon first. I don't think he can afford to stand off that much because it just gives Muniz too much space. And you can see David Raya is like absolutely fuming with his team. I don't really know how much about the build-up before this. Muniz missed a header, but yeah, Merino's the one chasing Pereira. But yeah, Lewis-Skelly is caught. I mean, it's both of them. I think it's Kivior and Lewis-Skelly. I think both of them are. I think both of them are at fault for their. Both of them could be doing more in that situation. Let's go to Stephen. Says Miles Lewis-Skelly on the halfway with Sessegnon behind him. It's onside. Poor but fatigue and learning experience towards the end of the game. I'm looking more at. I think they're both at fault. Watermelon says Kivior could have covered Miles Lewis-Skelly there. There was not enough cover in the centre, and Gabriel would have stopped across. He would have stepped across, certainly, to close down Sessegnon. Ambley says it was a bit of both. Miles Lewis-Skelly was pushing up, and Kivior didn't cover him. Gary says Kivior was in no man's land. He didn't defend the space and close down the player, so it wasn't great. Oliver says Kivior could have been more aggressive, but Skelly left him with too much to do, really. And Vihar says, should we be concerned about Real Madrid eventually poaching Saliba? Seeing this Trent move unfold, it makes me feel like there isn't much we can do if the player doesn't extend. Well, we've talked about this quite at length, and I've said this before time and time again. Should you be concerned? Yeah, obviously you should be concerned. They're a team that have absolute unwielding power and will take players from the best teams in the world on free contracts because that's what they can do. Players are willing to wait to make the move to Real Madrid. But at the moment, we can't really do too much about it. And Arsenal can't really do too much about it until they fail or succeed at trying to convince Gabriel Saliba from signing a new contract. Carl says, watched the Madrid game last night. very vulnerable at the fullback position, but the way they can turn up the tempo when they need to is frightening. Absolutely, scored 4 goals. You absolutely have to look at that. Natasha's in the chat. Good to see you, Natasha. Tash in here saying, Tom, seriously, the sense you talk. If people don't understand, then I'll leave that with you. Tom, thank you. Thanks, Tash. It's been a while. I haven't seen you in ages, Tash. We'll have to sort something out. Red Skull says, thought on the under-21 kid as well. I mean, Jimmy Gower on the bench last night, of course. He's a talent. You know, I don't know if he's going to make that kind of breakthrough. He's certainly got a brilliant ability to score free kicks. He's something of a specialist, but sorry, not Gow. I'm thinking of Rosiak, aren't I? I don't know what Gower's free kick abilities are like, but I think certainly that he's there for a reason. He's there. Arteta only puts those kids on the bench if indeed he is very much kind of impressed by what he sees on the training field, and he clearly must be very impressed by what Jimmy Gower has been doing. Red Skull says the right back score Rosiak. Yeah, Rosiak is the free kick specialist more so than Jimmy Gower. Let's scroll up in the chat. I've probably missed some of your comments from earlier on in the game. Martin says Andrew on the Vision put the summer window into context on Monday. Great analysis done without the benefit, of course, of hindsight as well. I guess we'll be having to catch up on some of that. I've had like no time whatsoever to talk about like transfers, not even transfers, but listen to other podcasts. I've barely been able to do any of that in this week. I've been, despite it being even the international break, you think I would have more time, but there's not really been too many podcasts going on while the international break's on, and for good reason. But yeah, certainly I need to get into listening to more pods while I'm on trains and stuff, but there's so much to watch these days that I'm sport for choice. John says, Tom, a lot of teams are getting hamstring injuries nowadays. I think you're right, too many games, but also I think the pitches are too good these days as well, and there's no give in them for the players. Is that something to think about? Maybe something to consider. Ife says, you could say that we've been really hamstrung by injuries this season. Eh? I think you are, Ife, probably right. Rand says, Tom has a new, really loud coffee machine. Certainly, if you can hear that noise in the background, again, I can only apologise for it. There's nothing much I can really do. 11 Mod says, do you think we will ever see a revival of Ødegaard now with Saka coming back? He hasn't been his normal brilliant self since he got his... I think it's more since he got that ankle injury. I think that's the last time we really saw Martin Ødegaard at his absolute best, was when he had that, when he was before that injury. I think that players of that level, of that quality, if you're giving up on Martin Ødegaard, the player that, of course, won the player of the season the last 2 seasons in a row for Arsenal, as voted for by fans, I think that's really sad. It's really sad to start giving up if you haven't already on our club captain after everything that he's brought to the team. He didn't have an amazing game last night at all. He could have had a couple of assists, which may have changed the game if Martinelli had timed his run a bit better. If he'd have finished off that chance that was created for him, that he hit over the bar, he had a volley in the first half as well. I think he didn't have a bad game. I just don't think he necessarily had a great game. And I want to see a great game from Ødegaard, and maybe the return of Saka, of course, will help with that. But yeah, it's frustrating that he's not had the best of seasons, especially when other players haven't been available. He's not really been able to step up to kind of fill that void, if you like. But I really do think that if people are giving up on Ødegaard, that's so sad. So sad to see after what he has done and what he has been for us. I think you can have a season, especially this season, above all else. This has been a horrible season for Arsenal. And, you know, I think that there have been players that have suffered because of injury and because of the other injuries around them and the inconsistencies in the team and their own pressures and dealings. So, yeah, let's wait and see. But the fact that some people are starting to give up on him is really sad. Gary says, Tom, we heard Arteta state in the press conference that we are looking for quality depth in the summer transfer window. And besides the obvious positions, which other positions do you think he's referring to? I think attacking midfield. I think, you know, certainly some aspects of the defence with players potentially leaving are going to be looked to as depth, you know, necessities for Arsenal. Joe says, Tom, what's your preferred defensive lineup against Real Madrid? Well, it would probably be Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, and Miles Lewis-Skelly, but we're not going to get that, are we? I guess we've got to hope that White and Timber are going to be there. If they are there, then I think you can go with Timber and White, Saliba, and Miles Lewis-Skelly. That's probably what I would be as a preference. I don't think I'd play White at right back with his situation. Limit the amount of running that he needs to do. Play him in the middle. And protect him as much as you can while enabling to play the best game that he can. So it would be Timber, White, Saliba, and Miles Lewis-Skelly would be my suggestion. Semi says, are you worried that Arteta will convert Merino into a striker instead of signing a new one? No, I'm not worried about that. No. I mean, Arteta, of course, mentioned in the post-match press conference that he said he moved into the 8th position and he described him as playing it perfectly. So I think he still very much sees his future playing for Arsenal in the midfield. Louis says, do you think that if he wasn't captain, it could take some load off his shoulders and pick up his form? Not that I want to strip him of the captaincy, that I think he's doing, or that I think he's doing bad. It's just a thought. I mean, maybe, Louis. I don't think the captaincy is too big of a weight these days. It's not like 30 years ago, the captaincy. For some fans, I know that it is, but it's not really in the grander scheme of football in 2025. It's just not that big of a burden in the same way as it was back then. So yeah, and Louis says you have to sometimes sacrifice on quality on a third or fourth choice centre back and give you. There's a balance between keeping a player happy and the quality that you have, of course, on the bench. Gary says, Tom, what did you think about Gabri's teammates not kicking the ball out when he was hobbling about? They played for over 3 minutes with him hobbling and trying to cover an attack. I was seething. I can't say I was too happy when I saw the players complaining that Fulham then didn't put the ball out when one of our players was down, or one of our other players was down injured. I mean, to play on after indeed Gabriel's gone down. What I would say is that maybe those players didn't know. Like when they were attacking, maybe they didn't know when obviously Fulham were on the attack and they're all crying for them to kick the ball out. The ones that did know, maybe, but it wasn't great. And obviously Gabriel got up and moved and got back, and whether or not that's had any further damage to the injury, we don't know. And we'll probably never know if that had further, or if that has done further damage to his injury. But yeah, it was terrible seeing that happen. Smith Rowe kicked the ball out for Timber when he was injured. Yeah, I did notice that. Nice touch. Class. Absolute class. Nikkei says, some fans need to understand that injuries have an effect on players around the injured players. It's different to pass the ball to Saka than it is to pass the ball to Sterling. Sandbox player says, Odegaard is missing Kai while Merino is doing well, but he doesn't make the same runs. I think he does make quite good runs, Merino, actually. Maybe not the same runs as Kai, but I do think he makes good runs. John says, even Kunde and O'Hara last night said injuries are the reason Arsenal are not winning the league this season. I mean, yeah, talk about saying the obvious, eh? I think we'll end the show there. The noise in the background I'm conscious of, so I don't want to keep you listening to someone banging your head against the wall too much longer anyway. But thank you so much as always for tuning in. Really appreciate you all being here. If you could drop a like on the video, that'd be muchly appreciated. I can't even talk. It's probably best I finish this. I'd be much appreciated if you could. I'll be back with you, of course, tomorrow morning, bright and early, for the next episode, and looking back, of course, at any news that drops in the next 24 hours, looking back at tonight's Premier League results, including that Liverpool match against Everton. We'll have Mikel Arteta's press conference on Friday. I'm not sure what time that is yet, so I don't know if there'll be a live show in the same way on Friday or not, but we'll know more tomorrow. But yes, have a fantastic day. Enjoy yourselves. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.